Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show once again. Up first, satellite imagery, and you can see a lot of cloudiness in over all of interior Alaska now, kind of a narrow streak of mostly clear skies or less cloudiness here, at least less of a higher cloudiness. Some sunshine in through here on down into Cook Inlet around Anchorage. This band of mid and high level clouds here extending on down into the North Gulf Coast area and the Gulf, clear over the Panhandle. And this band right through here, much more of a precipitation producer than this one, which again had virtually nothing at all. And also compared to what it was yesterday with very light amounts falling, it kind of energized and moved inland, and a fair amount of precipitation fell in some areas. In the last 12 hours, for example, King Salmon picking up about 2/3 of an inch of rain, 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. By contrast, a weak trailing edge coming across Kodiak there from southwest to northeast. Not really good for the state airport there to get much precipitation. They had about 7/100 of an inch, although 1/4 of an inch did fall down at AKwx in a more favorable position there. Drying out over the Bering Sea, just 3/100 of an inch of precipitation at St. Paul, and about that, just a few hundredths of an inch hit and miss for the Unalaska area Sand Point. Some more cloudiness there near and just south of Adak, and another band entering the picture, but nothing very strong at all, with just light amounts of precipitation around Shimei and Attu today. And on the chart here, this low kind of tracking up to the northeast there, a little gusty on the winds. Kotzebue, Kivalina seeing gusts 30 to 35 miles an hour today, and the Nugashik Mountains, or hills, Nugashik Hills, seeing gusts about 40 miles an hour there, near and just in advance of the front. So some breezy conditions there, especially if you have any elevation at all. And then westerly winds, St. Paul, St. George, 20-25 miles an hour, a little breezy, but nothing serious. Lighter winds down toward the Aleutians under the ridge axis, and then some light moisture coming in with that trough back out to the west. Otherwise, weak high pressure in over the Gulf of Alaska, about 1,019 millibars, still upper level ridge holding over the interior, but weakening enough to allow this system to continue to progress east and northeast. You can see all the sunshine down here over the southeast coast. Temperatures into the lower to mid-60s in some areas, a little breezy in the northern Panhandle there, and still enough upper support to keep the winds kicking up in the 20 to 25, possibly gusts to 30 miles an hour in around the Juneau area and the northern Panhandle. And also the Arctic coast up here, a little breezy in some locations as well. And for tonight, that pattern will continue up there. Not really looking for much in the way of fog along the Arctic coast. I believe VFR in the forecast there from the Aviation unit, and mostly clear skies, light winds, north slope down into the northeast interior. Look for some shower activity over the Copper River Basin, and clouds will be on the increase into the Tanana Valley, 40-mile country to a certain extent, and this rain will shift eastward and continue to increase. Seldovia, 3/100 of an inch, 7/100 at Homer. That'll continue, make it a little heavier, and start spreading up the inlet toward, well, first Kenai, then on up toward Anchorage. Probably won't reach Palmer, and really not much effect into the Susitna Valley other than the lowering cloud deck. Stays mostly clear here along the Panhandle, and out to the west, northwest breezes there. That'll keep the low clouds and IFR and fog socked in along the Bering Sea side of the North Shores here, the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Could see a few breaks tonight in the overcast for the Pribilofs on back down to Adak and Atka with this ridge axis kicking eastward. Look for periods of light rain, fog, drizzle, IFR here, Norton Sound on through the Bering Strait, southern Seward Peninsula. Stays dry, Kotzebue Sound, maybe a risk of a shower developing later tonight, but the bulk of the moisture will stay to the south at least through tonight. And this area of precipitation out to the west slowly moving northeastward. We'll see tomorrow. It kind of breaks up. Really, we just got a moisture-laden flow, west-southwesterly flow here across the Bering Sea. More of the low-type moisture, low clouds, fog, drizzle, IFR to marginal VFR at best in the area, except on the lee side here of the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Could see possible sunshine with VFR flying. Trough following this front in will keep showers scattered to maybe a little more numerous and scattered here over the Kuskokwim Valley, but tapering off out toward the coast. Looks like rain, clouds and rain, south central Alaska, ending Kodiak Island, maybe some sunshine, especially down to the south and southwest part of the island. And it looks like this rain will shift in, bring a better chance of rain into at least the central and western Copper River Basin. Showers could start to pop up over the Tanana Valley, especially over toward the mountains there, Chena Hot Springs, White Mountains, and those areas staying dry to the north slope along with some sunshine. Maybe some fog trying to develop, but mostly off the coast of the Panhandle. Sunny southeast coast and losing the winds. So it'll be a really nice day here for the Panhandle with temperatures probably back in the lower to mid 60s after the 35 degree readings tonight in the northern areas. Otherwise, for Monday, high pressure just south of Yakutat or west of Elfin Cove. Keeps it mostly sunny over the southeast coast there with light winds. Showers, the Gulf of Alaska, and scattered showers, mostly cloudy skies, Copper River Basin, westward, a little more enhanced along this trough, which is very weak, keeping some moisture to the northwest, but now we're only talking like the 100th to maybe 5, 6, 700ths of an inch levels. And then again, another trough weak with limited moisture here coming in on that westerly flow across the Bering Sea north of this 1,030 millibar high center, which will make for light winds and cloudy skies for the Adak-Yatka area, but no precipitation. And we still have that southwest flow pulling the moisture northward here, with the main warm front way out there to the west. So that's the main precipitation area. This is just a moisture feed at the lower levels coming in and then taking a turn to the east here. And we get these troughs occasionally coming on shore with some very light amounts of precipitation. More extensive areas of low clouds and fog along the Arctic coast. And looking at the low temperatures for tonight, Sunday morning, a little below the frost point there for the eastern north slope on out to the Arctic coast, mid-30s central coast, upper 40s over toward Point Hope and Kotzebue, Shishmaref, Nome, and Savunga, upper 40s, as well as for the Aleutians and Bristol Bay, mid-40s, south central Alaska, mid to upper Panhandle. Frost advisory, northern Panhandle tonight, lows 30 to 35 in the wind-sheltered areas, otherwise milder. You can see the 42 down there toward Metlakatla. And the highs for tomorrow, upper 50s to maybe lower, maybe even mid-60s again here over some areas with good sunshine. Near 60 for Kodiak and approaching 60 again or into the lower 60s, even with the increase in the moisture for the Susitna Valley, but definitely cooler than today by about 5, 6, 7 degrees. And near 60 for Bristol Bay, upper 50s, Tanana Valley, westward to about McGrath, and near 50 for the Brooks Range. Arctic coast not too bad, up into the 40s most areas except at Kaktovik with 37. The lows, they're 30 over the eastern interior the following morning, 40s for the Panhandle, so warmer there, and mid-40s southwest interior. About the same for the highs on Monday that you'll see tomorrow, near 60 in the Susitna Valley, 50s to 60s in the Panhandle, and mid-30s for the eastern Arctic coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic here showing big batch IFR out here, central Bering Sea on out to the southwest toward the Komodorskis, and one batch kind of jogging on to the coast and then inland here tomorrow morning, extending up to the Bering Strait south side of the Seward Peninsula. And then this mostly terrain enhanced here, Alaska Peninsula, Aleutian Range, and the Alaska Range with some IFR. Same thing going on here for Kenai Peninsula, Western Prince William Sound on into the Coast Range. VFR for the Panhandle, VFR Northern Interior, Central Northern Interior, all the way out to the Arctic coast. And then for the afternoon tomorrow, stays nice here over the southeast coast. And marginal VFR across southern Alaska with some areas of IFR, most extensive along the Alaska Range and the east side of the Kenai Peninsula up into northern Prince William Sound, and some isolated spots out here to the west, but pretty marginal. And VFR again over the interior, starting to see some marginal VFR, it looks like over the, the White Mountain areas and the 40-mile country, almost into the southern upper Yukon. Generally VFR all the way out to the Arctic coast. IFR holding central Bering Sea, just south of St. Lawrence Island, down to about Adak, over to just west of Kiska. And then for Monday morning, that area slides eastward slowly over the Pribilofs, down to the Fox Islands, north shores there of the Alaska Peninsula, up in toward Bristol Bay. Generally, VFR over the inland areas of Bristol Bay, but Togiak in the IFR, marginal across the west-southwest interior, IFR still along the Alaska Range, marginal Copper River Basin, VFR here over the central and northeast part of the state, but increasing marginal and IFR conditions along the Arctic coast, stays VFR over the Panhandle. And then for Monday afternoon, no change, VFR over the southeast coast, and marginal VFR away from Cook Inlet. Susitna Valley looks probably VFR as well as possibly the Matanuska Valley. Marginal VFR for much of the western interior, and IFR eastern central Arctic coast, just kind of grazing the area up there. Less IFR out here over the Bering Sea, but a batch along the Aleutians here right up to the Alaska Peninsula, and then it dissipates back to marginal for the Pribilofs, and St. Lawrence Island, just about all VFR. Passes, Anatuvik and Atigan, both VFR for yet another day tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR though, and windy will go marginal. Let's see, for windy or rainy will go marginal VFR. Windy, same forecast, occasionally marginal. And for Isabel, IFR. And for Mintesta, marginal VFR becoming IFR, kind of a slow deterioration. Maybe it'll just stay marginal, but possibility it could become IFR late in the afternoon. Tanita, though, optimistically staying VFR, will be overcast, but ceiling should be out of that category that would make it marginal. And for Portage, marginal VFR, likely IFR in the eastern entrance. Chilcoot and White stringing another, or chalking up another VFR day for both passes. And the freezing levels here are still ridging through the interior here, but an upper level system weak, drifting eastward. So we got a pocket of 8,000 feet over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, 10,000 the Alaska Peninsula, and the colder air off into western Canada, just hanging along and east of the border there, 2,000 to 4,000 feet. Otherwise 10,000 down here over the Alaska Peninsula. Icing areas of isolated moderate rime, mostly light, and just areas of light at that. Southern Alaska here, up over the eastern interior, northern Copper River Basin to about maybe the Yukon River, and another batch out here to the northwest, down in toward the Kuskokwim Valley, the Alaska Range, kind of breaking up in this area due to a divergent flow aloft. And you can see that here, westerlies coming across the Bering Sea, one branch taking off to the east-southeast there across Bristol Bay, this one curving back around. Basically high pressure holding but weakening in the interior, allowing this weak system to break through. This one east of the Panhandle, 9,000 feet, not too bad. Strongest winds out over the Bering Sea, 25 to 35 knots. 10 knots central Aleutians, light winds for the Panhandle, light winds in the interior, maybe 15 to 20 on the Arctic coast. Much the same pattern occurring here at 3,000 feet. A little brisker though, 25 knots up on the Arctic coast, light winds interior, light winds for the Panhandle, and westerlies 15 to 25 for the Aleutian southern Bering Sea, and maybe up to 30 knots over the northern Bering Sea. And turbulence, not a lot to speak of here, below about 4,000 feet in the Alaska Peninsula, as well as much of the Arctic coast.
Technology. It's the rhythm of our everyday life. We're more dependent on satellite and communication systems than at any other time in history. Disruptions can affect our economy and even our safety. To prepare for the effects of such events and minimize impacts, we need to look outside our atmosphere, some 93 million miles away, at a star we call the Sun. It's our main energy source. It warms the Earth and grows our food. While the Sun and the space between may seem pleasant from our perspective, it's anything but peaceful. At its surface exists a chaotic state of eruptions and radiation. And unlike Vegas, what happens at the Sun doesn't stay at the Sun.
Space weather is essentially emissions from the Sun radiation, magnetic field that erupts from the solar surface, pumped out into space, sometimes right towards Earth. When it impacts the Earth, it impacts our technology. That's what we call space weather.
These solar events and their effects at Earth can disrupt systems we take for granted. From causing blackouts to the power grid, to delaying offshore drilling operations due to inaccurate GPS data. Interference with communication systems can force air traffic to reroute and impact rescue response and coordination. Outside our atmosphere, solar radiation can harm astronauts and the systems they depend on. The good news is that these eruptions can be detected early. Forecasters at the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center in Boulder, Colorado, have their eyes on the sun at all times.
The Space Weather Prediction Center is part of the National Weather Service and is very much like a normal weather forecast office. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're looking at data, we're looking at imagery, we're looking at model outputs. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches of imminent activity to our customers so they can take action.
In many ways, forecasting space weather is a lot like forecasting hurricanes. Those who rely on space weather forecasts, like electric power grid managers, are informed early on and can begin taking protective action.
When we see an eruption on the sun, space weather forecasters will issue a watch. And this is much like a hurricane watch. When a hurricane sits offshore of Miami, for example, perhaps 48 hours out, we too can see way in advance that something may be coming towards the Earth.
As the storm moves toward us, it hits a monitoring spacecraft orbiting 1 million miles away from Earth.
It's kind of our buoy sitting out there offshore, and that hurricane about 30, 45 minutes before it makes landfall, we'll get the measurements from the buoy. That's what this spacecraft does for us. That big eruption that left the sun hits the spacecraft. Now we've got the measurements of exactly what's going to impact us here on Earth, and we issue the warnings to give the power grid a heads up that the storm is now imminent. An interesting element to this whole process is that when the forecasters issue the alert, the power grid receives the alert, takes the necessary actions to protect the grid, and the average citizen never knows anything ever happened.
The number of customers who rely on space weather information continues to grow. As our reliance on technology increases, so will our need for constant monitoring of the sun.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
GPS has changed society. Most people don't realize how remarkable and how many different applications there are.
The GPS has become an integral part, not just of our daily lives as far as cell phones and guidance for our cars and mapping, but the whole system in agriculture is really relying heavily on high accuracy GPS.
So they're using GPS to plant those seeds with centimeter accuracy. And then they can come behind it and irrigate and fertilize right where that seed is with that 1 centimeter accuracy.
The GPS creates a line for the operator that he can steer along, or you go to another level and the operator doesn't steer anymore and the tractor has an automatic steering system on it, much like a cruise control on a car, except for when I push the button, it doesn't drive a set speed. When I push a button, it stays on a predefined line.
You don't even need lights. You can do it at nighttime. You program your GPS and it's driving that tractor for you. So it's huge, and it's changing the way that the farmers farm the fields.
6 or 7 days out.
There's an interest in GPS applications from the space weather side because when the sun is eruptive, it causes GPS to falter, and in some cases it doesn't work at all.
Productivity may suffer to a certain degree in that there's no way that I as a human being can steer as good 8 hours a day as a GPS system's going to do. It's going to be the same all day long. Some of the other application technologies, those are going to be gone. We're not going to have the ability to do good section control on sprayers and planters and fertilizer applicators without GPS.
We see a huge growing customer base in so many different industries, so many different sectors now relying on GPS and high precision GPS. It's all big customers for us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. A little different from yesterday now. We've got open water here along the coast, I believe inside of the Barrier Islands. Fair distance past AKwx, and then it's back down toward the coastline, at least some ice. And obviously this area is continuing to slowly melt as new ice forms up in this region of the ice edge. And about the same trend for the next 4 or 5 days. Moving on to coastal water forecasts. Light north winds, the entire southeast coast, 5 knots on the north coast, otherwise 10 knots, seas 4 feet. South 15 for Lynn Canal, north 15 for Stevens Passage, light northwest winds for Clarence Strait. Outlook for Monday, southeast 10 for Clarence Strait. Really the inside water is variable at 10 or less, seas 2 feet. And mostly north at 5 knots. I'd call this no wind at all, except maybe southeast 10 there in the extreme north coast, seas 4 to 5 feet. And for Prince William Sound, east winds 15 knots tomorrow with seas at 2 feet. Southeast 20 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast and the western North Gulf Coast, east 25. Small craft advisories there turn northerly at 20 for the Barren Islands and Cook Inlet, north to northeast 15. Kamishak Bay, north 15. And for Monday, light southwest breeze for Cook Inlet, 10 knots with 2-foot seas, north 10, Kamishak Bay. Picks up to about 20 knots there for the Barren Islands, northeast 20 for the western North Gulf Coast, north 10, Prince William Sound, east 15 for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And for Kodiak Island, west winds 20 knots, northwest 20 here for the Alaska Peninsula, west 20 with 6-foot seas for Bristol Bay. And Monday, west 15 for Bristol Bay. And west-northwest 10 to 15 here for the Alaska Peninsula, and these seas 4 to 5 feet. And from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, northwest 20 knots, and that actually extends up those eastern marine zones there of Kodiak, while Shelikof Strait will see west winds at 15 knots. And for the Fox Islands, average it out, and you've got westerlies at 10 to 15 knots there with seas 6 to 7 feet. Southwest 10 to 15. Light winds, Adak and Atka. And then west of Atka, or west of Adak, on out to Shimian-Attu, southwest 20 with 6 to 7 foot seas. And then for Monday, just south 15 here for the western zones, northwest 10 into the central Aleutians, very light winds coming up on Monday, 4-foot seas, and northwest 10 extends all the way over to Unalaska Island, and the seas all the same, 4 feet. Under strong high pressure just south of Adak and Atka. And for Sunday, south or west, 20 knots for the southwest coast, 6 to 7 foot seas, 15 knots out of the southwest for the Pribilofs, a tad stronger here for St. Matthew Island at 26-foot seas, and St. Lawrence Island, west 20 knots, 15 knots out of the west for Norton Sound with 3 to 6 foot seas. And then for Monday, southwest 10 for the Sound, while St. Lawrence Islands, looking at westerly winds at 15 and extend all the way down to the north shore of Nunivak Island. South side there, northwest 15, west-southwest 15 for both St. Matthew Island and the Pribilofs with 5 to 6 foot seas. And we've got small craft advisories for a big stretch of the Arctic coast there from demarcation point all the way over until you get down to about Cape Beaufort. And from there to Cape Thompson, southeast 15, and then Cape Thompson to Wales, southeast to 20 with 4 foot seas. And for Monday, east winds 25 knots, small craft advisory, central and east side, southeast 20 on the west side, Wales to Cape Lisburne, south at 15 with 3 to 4 foot seas. And for tonight again, this system slowly moving eastward, and again, fair amount of rain with it today over Bristol Bay and up over the southwest interior. That'll continue to push eastward. Rain will increase in Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, slowly advance northward to maybe Anchorage toward morning, but probably not Palmer. See an increase in clouds, a few showers. Copper River Basin stays clear over the Panhandle. Those winds diminishing, so frost advisory in the wind sheltered areas, 30 to 35 for the lows. So really not, you can't really call that a killing freeze. And then up over the northeast, it stays mostly clear. More moisture sliding northeastward out over the Bering Sea. That pattern will continue for a couple of days here, bringing weak surges of moisture onto the west coast there. This front moves eastward, slowly weakens, but still a band of rain with it. Prince William Sound, south central Alaska, into the Copper River Basin. Showers try to get north of the Alaska Range. Panhandle sunny, northeast interior, east and north slope sunny, and that same trend holds for Monday up there as well. Look for more in the way of low clouds and fog for the eastern Arctic coast. Kind of unsettled, mostly cloudy southern Alaska, sunny in the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.